your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I am Richard Dugan, your host, along with my very special guest, Danielle Brooks. She is the founder of Pearl Business Consulting, but she's also the author of a very interesting book. We're going to talk about the contents therein, Amplify Your Freedom. And she's going to provide you with practical information to strengthen your leadership skills and to increase your business results. Danielle, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, there's a lot going on in the world today, in the world of business, and I want to touch upon this early on, and then we'll move on to other areas. We don't get into politics. However, government is not a business, and a business is not a government. And it just seems to me that there are people who are currently in charge who seem to think that it's a business. And at the same time, I understand that in any business, and I'm sure that you talk with a lot of folks through your Pearl Business Consulting, that, hey, look, you know, you got some areas where, you know, you probably could cut back a little here and cut back a little there. You know, we're not talking about slashing. We're talking about maybe using a scalpel to fine tune what you're doing. I think of Steve Jobs. He had a vision, right? And he developed this phone. This incredible phone. Now, I don't use one. I prefer the other stuff because for some reason, Apple likes to use faded out colors. Or at least that's the way I see it. Okay. I like the bright. See, I grew up with Warner Brothers cartoons. So I like those bright colors. But he had a vision. And when he passed, I thought, oh, they're in trouble now because the guy with the vision is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, apparently he was able to, I don't know if you say transfer, but share his vision with others who in a sense sort of picked up where he left off, but then took it to the next level and the next level and so forth. And that's kind of what we hope. I know that, you know, I don't know how long you plan on being a consultant and sharing your business expertise and so forth. But there's going to come a day where you're going to say, you know, I want to retire. And I don't know whether that means, this is a sole proprietor type of business, or whether you have people that work with you and for you, that you then pass it on to them. Let's talk a little bit about that aspect of it from the standpoint of the vision, running an efficient business, and at the same time not lose it. Because I think that getting into efficiency, sometimes can it not sort of wipe out or cover over, gloss over the vision that one had? We're trying to be too efficient and we've lost the vision.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I
I
know
think
that's a lot.
I mean, yes, there's definitely plenty of things I could pick from there. And I think I just wanted to, your tail end there, as far as the efficiency piece, that is something that I feel like I take pride in helping people operate more efficiently and effectively to march towards their goal. And so we start with the vision, and it's easy, I feel like, to lose sight of the vision when you just start cutting stuff. And now your vision has shifted to, I just want to be more efficient and faster at
Hmm.
everything instead of where are we going? And
Yeah.
that is where I start with. And so I use, like, so what you've talked about as far as just my background, I have no plans to retire anytime soon. So I've been in business for 13 years, and I will say that my vision ultimately has been the same, but I've shifted the journey on how I get there. And so I have operated more efficiently in some seasons than I have in others, and I continue to tweak. But I think that the end goal and where I'm headed and my purpose for why I'm doing what I'm doing in pro business consulting has stayed the same. And that's something that I've had a large team. I have a smaller team now, but that vision is shared with everyone, and it's understood as a team. So I can only speak to my business. Of course, I can't speak for all of the businesses or the
Hmm.
country at large.
Right. Right.
But what I have seen that has worked for me and for the clients that I've continued to help over the years is to help them, even if they start to lose sight of their vision and efficiency has gotten our way, then I just remind them, where are we going? Where are we
Yeah.
headed? And so I don't know where all we're going, like I said, in this conversation, but if you don't mind, I'd like to at least share to help you understand like a high
Hmm.
level view on the vision that I have that even has put us in talking to each other today.
Absolutely.
and,
Go ahead.
and how that vision has essentially stayed the same to a certain extent, but there's been how I get there. And this journey has shifted over the years from when I first started. And so if you're, like I said, so as far as I've been in business for 13 years, prior to being in business for myself, I worked a couple years for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. So I've had some time working for the federal government. And then after I left there, I went to work for ExxonMobil in a sales territory role. I had lots of experience on the corporate side of selling Mobile One to car dealerships and truck stops. And I enjoyed the sales side of things. But my vision, even as I was working for the corporate space and federal government, has, for my personal vision for myself, has really been what do I want in life? And then I'm marching towards that goal. And so when I left the CIA or when I left ExxonMobil, I had ultimately what my life goals were in mind. And I realized they weren't going to be realized as if I stayed in those various locations. And so when I left ExxonMobil, I honestly was looking for another job at the time. And then my mom asked me to help her with sales in her business since I came from a sales background. And that's when my company was born, was because I recognized the skill set that I had from my background of corporate and federal was going to help small business owners that may not have had my perspective. But the vision that I had in my life at that time, when I was working in the Midwest, I'm originally from the East Coast, I realized I wanted to eventually have a family and be married. And the direction that I was going in corporate life was not going to afford the life that I wanted. And so I realized there's no point in me staying here if I'm not heading in the direction that I want to go. And
Hmm.
so when I left, I at least knew geographically where I wanted to be. And when I started my business, I then realized, oh, well, this is now going to set the foundation for the life that I actually want to have. Eventually, I want to be married and have kids and still have a business and help other people grow their business. And I wanted to do that within my own guardrails of a business in my life. And so I started helping my mom define her own vision for her life and her business. And that's essentially where my business was born at that point. And so she had been in business at that time for about 7 years, had not had a vacation. She was truly burnt out, going from week to week, payroll to payroll, just paying her team. She had a janitorial cleaning business, and she was paying residential, doing residential and commercial business, but she wasn't able to breathe and take a step away to figure out, where do I want to go? This business has grown rapidly, and she didn't have time to plan and have a vision and a goal. Like, she was just literally busy.
Mm.
and and so I helped her ultimately take a step back, define the vision, and then we put systems and processes in place in order for her to run this operation more efficiently and march towards that goal. And I mean, I don't know if, like I said, if that's what you were looking for, but within a few years, I helped my mom take her business from 170,000 to over 550,000. She had 2 weeks off for vacation within the first year. And her and my dad were traveling around the world literally while the business still ran without them. And so I recognized that, oh, my skill set helps people. Guess I have a business here. And I honestly did that I did it from home. I was in Atlanta, she was in Tennessee, and I started helping her. And eventually other people asked me what I was doing. And I helped my mom's business grow from the basis of her accounting and bookkeeping. I asked her to see her financials. I understood the type of client she wanted, or really the life that she wanted. And the type of client she had at that time was not going to afford the life that she wanted. She was spending 80% of her time on 20% of revenue. She didn't know how to come up with that analysis to figure that out. I did that for her, showed her the type of clients that she should go after that will give her the more freedom that she wanted in her life. And then she was able to make more money with working less, had less team, less overhead. And I now essentially do those same type of things for my clients as well. And I was doing that in my own business. And so I've been in business for 13 years, but at the same time, I've been married for 10 years. I also have 4 kids that are 8, 6, 4, and 1 right now. And I've been able to still grow a business because that was the life that I envisioned. And I have made shifts and changes, and I'm still marching towards that. We're helping other people achieve their dreams by having my life be the example.
So in other words, you have, with all of that, you really don't have, you're not, other than that, you're not doing anything else. You know, you got a lot of free time, it sounds like. Speaking of free time, amplifying your freedom, is the title of your book, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. And the freedom that you've just described it. Now, there's a little hitch in the giddy up, because what if you're a sole proprietor? You're it. I'm it, for example, my business and what I do. Now, yes, I work for someone, a radio station, a corporation that owns the station, but I'm the only one there. Plus, I do these programs that are heard on that station, as well as podcasts on various outlets and video casts. And then I do side projects for people. I help people record their Audible books, and I take video that they might record for whatever projects they're working on, and tighten them up, clean them up, put different things credits at the front and the back, and the whole thing. And I have often said, when people ask me, Richard, you're almost 65. When are you going to retire? Now, my brother, who's younger than me, has already retired. He's already traveling around the country, around the world. Half the year he lives in Vietnam, the other half in the States. I have sisters who also are already retired, as well as their husbands. I'm probably the only one in the family who's working and chooses to. And what I say to people who say, Richard, what are you going to do when are you going to retire? I say, well, as soon as my mechanic tells me when it's time to put a new set of tires on the car, that's when I'll retire. I'll retire the car. I love what I do. I enjoy it. And I hope that no one has to really do this, but they're basically going to have to peel my cold, dead carcass off the console. Okay. This is so much fun for me. So how does a sole proprietor deal with this aspect of amplifying one's freedom? Does that really come down now to, in a manner of speaking, to scheduling or time management? What does it require for a sole proprietor? Because I know there are a lot out there.
There's a lot out there. I have helped a lot of sole proprietors. And one thing, if there's anything I'd like to offer when it comes to sole proprietor, that doesn't mean you have to still be in business by yourself. To your point of what you just said, the services you provide, you can provide to sole proprietors. We're not all meant to do absolutely everything all by ourselves. If I'm not great at video editing and doing all the things that you do, someone can hire you. They can still be a sole proprietor and focus on their skill set and what they do great, and then hire out as a contractor to do other things. And so what I like to do when I talk to sole proprietors is just help to shift their mind to the feeling like, woe is me, and the world is, everything is on me and no one else. I'm not like you. I don't have a team. I didn't have a team when I started. And I only started to hire a team when I literally ran out of hours in a day. And I had two kids at the time before I hired my first person because I was literally not sleeping. And when the kids went to sleep, I was started to work. I would do all the accounting for clients and close out their stuff and take an hour nap and the kids are up. It's like I was doing that for far too long and realized this is not what life is supposed to be like. I don't want to be a robot. And so what I did was an assessment. This is what I recommend for sole proprietor to do. Take an assessment of where you're spending your time in your day, in your week, in your month. What's the cadence, whether it is week to week, day to day, like where are you spending your time? And where's your energy going? And that is where my first hire was. After I started looking at where all my time was going. So as a virtual CFO firm, I guess I feel like I should just offer that before I tell people what I do, so they understand why I made the shifts that I did as sole proprietor. And so as a virtual CFO firm, we're providing accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll services, but overall strategy and consulting for small business owners based on their finances. And so I needed clear financials before I offered strategic advice about their financials. So I was spending a lot of time getting the financials in order. I was doing a lot of time doing accounting and bookkeeping and processing payroll for clients. And I didn't, there's still only so many hours in the day. But once I realized that's where my time was going, and it didn't take me long to do the analysis, depending on what type of analysis I was doing, but I needed the mental space. I needed sleep. I needed to be able to eat. I needed time and space to do that. And there's still only so many hours a day. So my first hire was an accountant. So they took care of all the accounting, bookkeeping, which freed up my time and energy and space. I was able to charge more for the strategy than I was for the accounting. Therefore, I now have a contractor as an accountant. I'm still offering the same services as a sole proprietor, but I'm now able to even show up in a different space and offer more strategy consultants and clients. And so people that are a sole proprietor, I just want to encourage them to not feel like you have to do this all by yourself, because you don't. Your skill set is meant for the world, and you are meant to show up and do that for the world. But if you are bogged down and doing things that you're not great at, that's sucking the life out of you and draining your energy, then those are things you should hand off. There's somebody that loves to do what you don't like to do. So I'd say hand that off to them to free you up to then do what you do well, and you can continue to grow, and your business, your income, and your life, honestly, I feel like it will just continue to blossom when you free up that time and space to do so.
Well, 30 years ago, I had a business for 1 year. I was living in Phoenix at the time, and I was still working for radio stations, but I also had a side job that I actually got my state what was it? I got my business license, so to speak. I forget what, copyrighted, I guess, or trademarked. I can't even remember all of the details there. Which was, I think, it didn't cost anything, or it was very inexpensive at the time. And I had the business for a year, and then I went to file my taxes. And when it was all said and done, I owed the government $3,000. So I ended the business. I says, But what I kind of said was, I will not start a business up again until I am able to find the infrastructure necessary to take care of what you just talked about. I don't want to deal with the financials. I don't want to deal with that blah, blah, blah. I want to focus on the editing. I want to focus on the production. I want to focus on the interviews, et cetera, et cetera. And, and yet I keep hearing from different other quarters, oh no, you need to learn all these different aspects. I mean, I hear about people who own restaurants and they spend 90% of their time in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those catch-22s where, yeah, I know I need to do all of this stuff, but I don't want to do all of this stuff. And if I don't do all of this stuff, then I'm going to wind up, as I did that first time, $3,000 in the hole. I finally got it taken care of, but I have a feeling that I can't go back now, but I probably filed the wrong forms, or I filled them out incorrectly, because I didn't make that much. I mean, if I don't even know if I even made $3,000. Okay. So, so those are the challenges that we all face. And I couldn't agree with you more. If you are able to, I think the term is outsource. And you can, but there's the other aspect of it too, especially if you're new at it. You're a new entrepreneur. You're a new sole proprietor. you may not have the capital to outsource. I mean, I get inundated regularly, Danielle, with individuals through email who say, you know, YouTube is not giving you the credit you deserve. You have over 500 videos on your site, and yet you're ranked, 4,723, and you should be a whole lot higher than that. And I can help you do that, or with SoundCloud and my podcasts, and so on and so forth. Everybody wants to help, and I know everybody is worthy of getting paid for what they do. Um, but where I have been most of my life, although it's starting to change, thankfully, I haven't had the wherewithal to say, you know what, I'd really like to do that. At the same time, then we also have to watch out for the scammers too. That's another subject we'll
Absolutely.
we'll get into, and we want to get into more of this in regarding amplifying your to amplify your freedom with Danielle Brooks as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and this is the program that brings you new paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Danielle Brooks, my guest, and we're talking about her book, Amplify Your Freedom. And we've already sort of defined the freedom. One of my other regular guests on this program talks about a roadmap. It talks about you have to know where you want to go. And so I'm going to give you a roadmap. Where do you want to go? Well, I don't know. And I would have to say that I'm probably in that category because I know what I like doing, okay, but I don't necessarily have, well, I guess maybe I do have a goal because I want to be able to take my wife to Ireland at the end of 2025. We haven't been for over 20 years. And we desperate, not only do we want to go back, I want to get a one-way ticket and never come back.
Love it.
Not because of anything, please understand, ladies and gentlemen, not because of anything that is going on in this country. I have wanted to move there since we went there in 2002 and 2004. Okay. And there was a whole different administration I didn't care about. So I love the people. I love the country. And we love the cool weather or even the cold weather and so on and so forth. So I guess there is sort of a goal there. But I'm actually able to do all of the stuff that I do there, because here we are in the remote world, isn't it? I mean, it's incredible. So you've talked about the freedom. How do we amplify that? What are some of the steps? Because I'm going on long here, but you have three pillars, and I love this because I used to hire people, hiring the right people. I've done that, but I've also done the opposite too. Reclaiming time, big thing that we've also talked about. But I love this one too, and you've touched on this as well. The escaping the bondage of being held, I love this word, held hostage by my own business. So, so help us. What are some of the early steps that we want to take? Let's keep it simple and let's say it's a sole proprietorship.
Yes, I'm so excited to be able to talk further and provide more insight about the book that I have worked on as far as amplify your freedom. And to your point, those are the three key pillars that I recognize from working with hundreds of small business owners that typically started as a sole proprietor. Like they are a solopreneur doing it all by themselves. And where I like to encourage people to start is with the tools. And let's evaluate your current set of tools that you have. And we are evaluating that based off of still where you want to go. And so if it is, I want to move to Ireland and still be doing the same thing I'm doing, then what do we need in place to make that possible? And so when I also shared the example about my parents that wanted to take a vacation, they went on this 2-week tour to Greece and Italy. What needs to be in place in your business to make that possible? We knew that if they were still running day-to-day operations, we needed somebody else in there to run the operations. We needed to have actual operations documented so someone else could follow that. And so I recommend when people are first getting started, there are three key tools that I think need to be in place for a small business owner. And that is one, having a time tracking tool of some sort for you to track where your time is going. and then having a bookkeeping tool, which is going to it's going to be tracking all of your income and all of your expenses. And so many people feel like they can't hire because one, they feel like they can't afford it, but they don't actually know what they can and can't afford because they're not tracking anything. We cannot truly evaluate where you've been if we don't have a system to track anything. I don't know how long it takes me to do this thing. So then when you go to hire somebody to do it, you are not able to, and this is something I wanted to hit on when you mentioned, I don't know what to do. I want to hire people, or I don't know. I don't recommend for someone to start hiring as soon as they start their business.
Right.
I recommend for you to, one, have done the job, you've done it well, where now when you hire, you know how to properly check behind people. There's a quote that my husband has ingrained in me over the years, that you have to inspect what you expect. And so you cannot inspect someone's work if you don't know, and don't know that you don't have in the outcome that you're planning to measure them by, if you don't know what the expectations are. And so but I know, I feel like I've already jumped into all my other things as far as the hiring and stuff goes, but that's the purpose of having those tools, because you need to be able to track your own time. So then now, if I know that, if I just stick to even the example of my business, my first hire was an accountant. I was doing the bookkeeping and the accounting on my own, all by myself, before I hired someone. I knew how long it should take for all the different clients' books to be closed. I understood what that process looked like to close it. So now when I go to hire someone, I know how to inspect their work, and I have an expectation for the amount of time it's going to take you. I know how much money I'm making, and I know how much I should be spending on. I know we have a general agreement on what my payment terms are to you. I now know what to expect on what to pay you, and expect on the outcome on time that it should take you. And that came from me having tools in place before I ever hired. And then also, if you are starting to hire someone, some sort of payroll system, that it doesn't have to be elaborate. People have Gusto or QuickBooks Online Payroll. Even if you're paying someone via Zelle, we need to have a system in place that you are tracking how you're paying them, how much you're paying them, and then we can take care of all the 1099s, all that kind of stuff on the back end. But I know we're going to keep talking about things, but when you mentioned that you were surprised by the tax bill, that's one thing that's the story of a lot of small business owners. And that is something that I don't want to happen if someone's under my watch. And so that tracking is one other, if you've got an accounting and bookkeeping system, we can track all your income. And I don't know, have you ever heard of Profit First system at all?
No.
Okay, so this is one, as I was helping people make more money, I was watching them spend it all. And that's where I ended up becoming certified in a system called Profit First. It's a cash-based money management system. This guy named Mike Michalowicz wrote a book, and people are certified all over the world in the system, but it ensures that you are profitable from day one. So I had profit plans for my clients, but the Profit First system is something that is one of those tools that I recommend to have in place from day one. It ensures that you are profitable from day one, because it's set up like the envelope system. I don't know if you've ever heard of like where maybe grandma used to make all her money one time, and you set aside a certain amount for a home and food. And so that system is how you set up your bank accounts. So we have all our money coming in one account, and we have an account for you to pay yourself. We have an account for profit. We have an account for taxes, and we have an account for your operating expenses. And in most accounting practices, income minus expenses equals my profit. My profit's whatever I have left over. Small business owners are typically not paying themselves at all or enough, and they're paying themselves from the leftovers. Well, this system of Profit First ensures that you're profitable from day one, because you take a certain percentage of your income, set aside that for profit. Certain percentage is set aside to pay yourself, set aside a certain percentage for taxes. And now we're running the business off of what's remaining. And if we cannot, then we now need to make shifts. We know from day one, I need to bring in more income, or I need to cut some of these expenses to ensure that everything else is accounted for. So I know that was a handful, but those are the tools that I recommend to have in place from the very beginning. And that's where I like to start. In order to be more efficient and productive, we have to have certain tools in place to ensure you have the solid foundation to move forward.
Okay. So there's an element that unfortunately we must look at in this equation. And we're going to do that as we continue talking with Danielle Brooks. talking about amplifying your freedom. The book is entitled Amplify Your Freedom. We certainly hope you will go to pearlbc.com. We'll be linked to that website on our podcast and videocast so you can find out more about what Danielle is doing as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. There is an element, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, of our conversation that we now have to dive into. You have mentioned bringing in not just software, but also individuals that you would outsource a lot of what you've already discussed with us. But there is one word that is really hard to incorporate into one's, whether you're a sole proprietor or otherwise: trust.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and I know people, I know someone personally who dealt in the financial aspects of other people. This was her job. I don't know if the right word is fiduciary. That may not be the correct word, but she helped people to set up endowments and grants and this and that and the other thing to ensure that, number one, they had enough in during their retirement, but also that when they left, that whatever was left over was either dispersed through a will or it was dispersed to charities that they wanted to support and so forth. And unfortunately, the next thing I know, I'm looking at the front page of the local paper and she's being arrested. Now, she, and again, I don't know and I don't want to cast aspersions. She's still a friend of mine. I work with her to this day. I believe what she has told me, that she didn't do anything wrong. Nobody, first of all, nobody was hurt by what she was accused of doing. But number two, she didn't do what they are accusing her of doing. She believes that it was the children of the woman who passed away who basically wanted a huge lump sum payout, if you will. And so they accused her. And the next thing you know, for the next 5 to 7 years, she's in the courts. She's arrested. She's put in jail. She's booked. She is found. Well, actually, she took a plea. She paid the fine of $250,000. And the list goes on. And I'm sitting here going, she's got multiple houses in these different places and she's doing very well. Why would she need to do what, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue of trust, we hear of companies that have been embezzled from people from within as well as from without. We're hearing, I don't know if it's true or not, of massive corruption that's being cut out within our federal government. And I know states are starting to do the same thing at their levels and so on and so forth. I'm not saying there is or isn't. It's just that issue of trust. And now it's like, gee, I don't know. Danielle, I like your face. You smile. You got a great smile, great energy and everything. But, I've been burned too many times. I just don't know. How do you help people? Because I know it's there and you see it in their faces or hear it in their voices. How do you help them to get over that hump?
Well, I can't. One, to your point, there's lots of corruption happening in the world. There are people that I'm sure that are smiling on somebody's face and they're doing things that behind their back. And that's, of course, nothing that I'm doing, but people don't know me from the next person typically.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have no problem helping people gain trust with working with me. I can't speak for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard terrible stories, and like it is countless stories on the accounting side where people have come to me because there's someone they trusted that they've been paying on a monthly basis to take care of the accounting bookkeeping. When it came tax time, they literally had no books and they paid someone all year long. And now the person's disappeared and they paid all this money and they have nothing to show for it. And so I've heard several stories. People have come to me at the end of now they've got a mess and they owe taxes or they don't have it. Like there's so many stories. And so all I can do, my business over these past 13 years has grown strictly from word of mouth, where someone has referred me because I did a great job for them and they continue to refer me out as for in various programs I've been in. And so that has been a blessing that I take care of people. And I know that not everybody does. And so if people don't know me and they may have heard of me from somewhere else, but they don't even No, I mean, this is what I also encourage anybody. Start with a small project. This goes for
Mhm.
anybody that you're hiring. Start with something small that you want to hand to them and see how they do. Do they show up when they say they're going to show up? Do they deliver it when they say they're going to deliver it? Is the work to the standard that they said they were going to do? And I'd say you continue to test and trust but verify their work, and you continue to extend that trust and until you feel like you have a reason not to. And I mean, I
Mhm.
think that is just the world we're in. Yes, people are entrusting me to do the job that I say I'm going to do. I am doing it, but they've also been burned several times over. I mean, there's someone right now that has been had the same accounting company for 4 years since they started their business, and they trusted them because, and
Mhm.
the business owners, and when I say I want to help people escape being held bondage from their business, you trust the people that you're working with because you hope they're going to do their job because you're busy running your business, you're busy doing your in service, and you want to do it right. And you are trying to do, everyone says hire all these people, get your accounting team, get everything, because you need that in order. And it hurts my heart to see when accounting teams are overwhelmed. They have too much on their plate, but they don't tell people, they don't tell the end customer that I can't help you because they have their own issues or whatever. And so, I mean, that I've seen this several
Mhm.
times over where there's an accounting team right now. As far as the strategy service that we provide now, I am now also the middle person between someone's accounting team and the business owner, where the business owners don't know what they don't know, the accounting team doesn't know what the business owners know, and I'm like the in between person. And in this current moment, I'm in a transition where I basically told the accounting team, here's all the things that need to be changed based on my conversation with the client. And the accounting team basically said, well, we quit. We're not making any changes. And we've gotten our money thus far, and we'll see y'all later.
Yeah.
And I've seen this time and time again. And so I know it was an extra long answer that I still would just encourage people to give people a little bit of a test project. But this circles back to our very first part of this conversation, that you have to know you have to know what people are doing that you're hiring, that you have to know what their scope of work is supposed to be. And that's
Yeah.
when it comes to the accounting side, people don't always know what the accountant's supposed to do. And so they don't know how to check behind them. They don't know what their end deliverables are supposed to be. And so that was something that I continued to hear over and over again. Where I've created a resource that people can find on my website that helps people understand the difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper, and then general expectations between both, so that you can show up educated on how to check behind your accounting team. And I think that is the best thing to have in your arsenal, is knowing what they're supposed to do so you can continue to check behind them to hold people accountable.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we are in that phase, if you will. And it's not nothing new. It's been going on, obviously, since unfortunately since man has been on the planet. Always trying to get one up on the next guy, rather than doing what's necessary for me to make sure that I'm doing all right, and treating other people. I I am the kind of person who, if you will, is living in the 1800s. My word is my bond. I do not have written contracts. 99% of them are verbal. And it's because I know the people that I'm working with. I've worked with them for many, many years on other projects, not necessarily, for pay, but we have worked together on different projects. And now they want me to do something for them specifically. And we know each other. And so, okay, I'll tell you what, I charge $100 an hour for production, and da 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 da. And so, I mean, that's the way it used to be. It was your word and a handshake. And then you take a look at 2007, 2008, and you heard this phrase, too big to fail.
Mm.
Uh-huh. Sure. There's nothing that's too big to fail when it comes to the business world, when it comes to finance. What really troubled many people, I know, because it troubled me based upon what I understood about capitalism and free enterprise, was why they didn't let the system, capitalism and free enterprise, determine who survives. I thought that was the rule. But they were bailed out, these different companies, back in 2000, 2007, and 8. And so then that puts in the mind of the entrepreneur, the sole proprietor, what have you, Well, shoot, if they can do that, I can do it. I mean, they got away with it. They did. And we see this, all the time. But it draws me into another area I want to talk about in regards to one's one's business, which may be their love. Maybe this is what I want to do. This is the direction on that map I want to go. And we're going to talk about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. We are talking with Danielle Brooks, and we are looking at that roadmap, and we know what we want. But I want to dive into what I'll put it this way: the soul of one's company or business or entrepreneurial venture. And if it's a sole proprietorship, well, it's yours. It's your soul and or the heart, if you will. Um, I'm just wondering from your standpoint, and you again, you've dealt with all of these different aspects over the last 13 years or so, and what is can you describe, if you will, um, the health? Let's not put it in that context. Yeah, because we can gauge, because we can look at the numbers, the health of a business by looking at the numbers. We can look at the health of the business by the employees, if there are employees, if it's beyond a sole proprietorship. But what about the soul, the health of the soul of the company? I mean, one of the things that impressed me about Steve Jobs, and we didn't find out about this until after his passing, but it impressed me. There was only one book that he had on his phone. Only one. This is what I read. And it was Autobiography of a Yogi, which is my metaphysical primer. I read that back when I was a teenager, and I've read it many times since. That tells me that he had a vision, but he also there were spiritual underpinnings.
Hmm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that aspect of your business? But if that's something that you are able to or even want to talk about with your prospective or clients, in terms of, we're talking, and we're not talking religion here.
Yes.
We're talking philosophy. So please share with us your insights.
Oh, I absolutely love the conversation topic of the soul of the business. And I think so many small businesses that I've talked to, their heart that's had their heart that they have within them, that essentially is what gave them the drive to start the business, that pours out to their clients. And that's how they continue to grow, is because people can feel that soul. And this is my opinion. I think businesses start to fail when that heart starts to dwindle and that soul starts to fade, and you put more systems in place to and removes people further and further away from the soul. And I also think that people start to lose that heart and soul when they become overwhelmed and they're burnt out, and they feel like they're just spinning from day to day, helping people and putting out fires, but it's no longer fun for them. And that all of that is why I do what I do. I want people to keep that soul that they have in their business, that fire that in your heart that helped you start it, the people you want to serve. That is what drives me. The fire that I have in me is still to this day, where I wanted to help my mom, because I'm like, hey, I had all these life experiences that helped me to have the knowledge to help you, but I wanted to give back to you for you to live the life you want. And so that is something that is in me for everybody. And the first questions I ask people when I first get to know them, literally the first conversation is, what do you want? Why are you doing this? What is your reason for being in business? Who do you want to serve, and why? And that soul is what I want to help keep intact, in order for
Mm.
them to still be in business as from next generation on, if that's what they so choose. And I think that so too many people lose that soul when they have a lack of a foundation. And so those different tools, the different tracking, as far as of how to use those tools, those are, I think, what is allows people to lose that soul. They allow the clients to run them. They allow their team to run them. They allow society and the world to tell them how they should run their business instead of listening to themselves and as far as what started it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like what has helped me continue to stay in business is I'm in tune with the clients and I have not changed. Like, so the Amplify Your Freedom is truly helping people define freedom, and then we're going to amplify it. I want to help you define freedom for yourself, and I want to help you get there. And that definition of freedom is different for everybody, and that's okay. And I want to give people permission to be okay with you looking different. Your business looks different. All of that is okay, and let's go out there anyways. But I honestly think in order to keep that soul and to keep the heart of the business, you have to have space for you to still be a whole person. If you are a mom and a wife, a dad, a husband, a son, a daughter, all those different people, you're not just a business owner. And I think so many people become, they drown in the day-to-day of their business, and it removes them from life. And they now are just, now they start to I guess more or less resent their business, because now this business that I love is now keeping me from my family members or keep me from my social life. And that's that bondage that I talk about, where I want to help people truly figure out how to live in harmony with their life and their business and keep that soul intact. And I think that, this is just my opinion, because this is the world I've been in, that the financials helps people have a peace of mind around their business to still give them the freedom to think about how to grow no matter what line of business they're in. And I think the financials is one piece no one wants to talk about. They're afraid to talk about. If they're not knowledgeable, they're embarrassed. If they don't know, and they feel like they should know. And all of those feelings that are negative helps to kind of basically put a damper on that heart and that soul that started your business.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting things. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, I think we need to move away from Gordon Gekko's statement that greed is good. Greed is not good. Greed is the equivalency of hoarding. That's hoarding. You know, you want to call, if you use greed, I'll say hoarding. And I'm not saying that there should be a cap on how much you can acquire and have in a vault somewhere. I'm not going there. But I also know that there are individuals, and I believe Warren Buffett is one of them. He may be one of the wealthiest, not the wealthiest, but one of the wealthiest people on the planet. But he also helps other people. There's another sports figure, Shaq, very wealthy individual, primarily because of his basketball career, but also endorsements and other things that he's decided, businesses he's started. But he is a very generous man. He gives back because he knows where he came from. He doesn't forget that. So he hasn't, and he's acquired a lot, and that's fine. But what seems to happen, Danielle, is that people, they get caught up in that, I'll call it that whirlpool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they forget why they got into business in the first place. And their business is very successful, which is fantastic. But the business is starting to suffer because they are acquiring so many material things. I don't
Yes.
care. I don't care that Steve Martin said back in the 70s on his album Let's Get Small. You know, they say you can't take it with you. Well, I'm taking it with me. My father passed away 2 years ago, and he didn't take any of it with him. Okay, and you know, so it's one of the, it's one of those things that I personally have been through a lot of financial struggles in the years I've been working, and I've been working since I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, something like that. I started out as primarily as a paper boy, although I did cut lawns prior to becoming a paper boy. And it's been a challenge, and I've been frustrated throughout. And now I'm almost 65, and things are starting now. Only now things are starting to sort of, they're starting to build, and I'm staying focused on what it is that I want and not focused on the finances. It's not that I'm ignoring them, mind you, but it's not what's forefront. It's
Mm-hmm.
there, maybe second or third or fourth position, but I'm focused on, I like doing this. This is a lot of fun. You know, I can't, and I can't believe they pay me for doing this. you know, but I'm glad they do. I'm glad they do.
Yes.
I mean, how many people, honestly, Danielle, and I don't know exactly where you live and the economics of the community in which you live. I live in Santa Barbara. You know about Santa Barbara and its economics, right? Well, I'm not
Not
making,
enough.
well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's considered to be one of the most expensive places in the country to live, right? I've been here 19 years. I'm not making $1 million. I don't have $1 million yet. Yet. Okay. But I'm still here. And obviously I've been doing some things right to maintain my residency here in this
Hmm.
area. And a lot of people they get frustrated. People want to live here, but they can't afford it. And there are those who live here and say, look, if you can't afford it, you got to live somewhere else. We're not going to provide affordable housing because, I mean, there are people who feel that way, that they don't want people who don't have the kind of well-to-do living in their neighborhood or in their community, and I sit here thinking about that. And it was when I first moved here, and I would go to a lot of the retail stores. Most of the people who work in some of these retail stores and the grocery stores and so on and so forth, they don't live here. They have to commute in. And I'm thinking, all right, if these folks want to save money, they need to find jobs in the communities where they live. Well, what's
Hmm.
Santa Barbara going to do? We don't have any workforce. Well, that is not their fault. That's yours because you
Yeah.
won't allow other people who aren't as well to do as you. But there's that other aspect, and you touched upon this, and I was going to dive on it, but we went in a different direction for the moment. There are people out there. First of all, we have 8.5 billion people on the planet. In this country, I believe it's 350 million, roughly. There are people who enjoy getting on the back of a garbage truck and collecting the trash. There are
Hmm.
people who enjoy plumbing and running a snake. There are people who enjoy the electrician jobs and contracting and road work and we could go on and on.
Yes.
There is somebody who is willing to do that. And that's kind of what you're talking about in terms of finding out what it is you want to do. How much of your childhood plays a role in what you're doing now? Because I won't go on about that from my childhood, but I know that if we look back at our childhood, we will find things we didn't get paid for it. We played. That was our play. So what about your childhood and your growing up? Is any of that reflected in what you do today?
Absolutely. I couldn't help but to think about reflecting my child, as you mentioned, like you had a paper route and stuff like that. So, as you're saying, what I did as a child that I didn't get paid for versus what I did get paid for, I feel like all of that is playing a part right now. And so, even as a kid, before I was like getting paid for anything, I always loved taking things apart and figuring out how they worked. It drove my mom crazy. She eventually started going to the Goodwill just to buy me stuff to take apart because I would take apart stuff that really was working around the house and I couldn't put it back together. And so I ended up going to school for mechanical engineering because I loved figuring out how things work. And so my background is not actually in finances, but I ended up talking to a chiropractor that has an engineering degree, and he told me the way he thinks about a spine. He's re-engineering people's spine just like an engineer would think about a bridge. And I'm
Hmm.
essentially re-engineering people's businesses based off their finances. I understand where you want to go, and I have this eye for pulling things apart to figure out how things work. And it's just in me. Like I understand as far as the operations side, what's missing. We're gonna put this thing together to make it one happy whole picture. And even as a kid, things I used to get paid for, my dad, he's always worked. My parents are still working to this day in their 70s, and they are never gonna stop because that's what they know. But they've ingrained that in us as their children. I have a brother and a sister as well. I was cutting grass at an early age. I used to paint apartments during the summer. I used to sell different things in magazines, going door to door. I sold all types of stuff. And so I've literally been in business since I was 8 years old. I was the first year I told my parents I want to do what they were doing. My dad took me to Franklin Covey store, got me a business card, and I've been I've been drenched in business of some sort literally my whole life. And that helps me to understand the business owners now because I have been you since I was a kid. And I understand how it's so easy to want to buy all the things. As a kid, I didn't need anything. My parents took care of all the needs, and all my money was my free money. And I've now learned as an adult, I still didn't need to buy all the crap that I bought as a kid, but I was allowed to because it's your money, do whatever you want to with it.
Right.
And so I now understand what I want to do different. I feel like earlier in age and maybe some other people, just because life has allowed me to have those opportunities. And so I feel like both those things, what stuck out when you're saying, how does my early age play into what I'm doing now? I understand where people are. If you just now started making more money than you used to have, I want to help you keep it. Let's talk about investments. Let's talk about where do you want to live? What do you need to live there? And then let's put some tools and systems in place and to ensure you are at peace while you are living the life you want and not burnt out and not feel like you have to keep working to maintain it because you now are in over your head. And that's something that I've seen people, they talk about the golden handcuffs. They've created a business or they've got a job that now pays them all this money to pay for this life. They feel like can't leave it now because they're too far in. And that was something also that I didn't want as far as life in a business. And I feel like that I've been able to see a lot of different things from childhood on that allowed me to make different shifts in how I operate day to day and honestly how I coach my clients.
It's an interesting conversation we're having because it it isn't just about business. It's about living our lives.
Yes.
Now, granted, we statistically we sleep 8 hours a day. We work 8 hours a day. That leaves 8 hours, maybe four on one end and four on the other, however that works out, for whatever else you got, whatever else you want to do. And I'm fortunate in that obviously with the shutdown in 2020. As a matter of fact, we fast approach that anniversary, which also is the anniversary of the when I started full time at the radio station. I am still working for 17 years later. And it's fascinating to me to look back on how we shut things down. I continued to go into the office because, well, I was the only one, so it was no problem. Um, but it opened up some new venues for people, new ways of doing things. And I think that one of the last things I want to talk to you about is perspective. Um, we have a system in this country that probably exists in other countries as well, um, where we pay taxes every year. Sometimes it's quarterly, but we all pay taxes. We fill out that form every year, which here in the electronic age, I'm going, why do I have to fill out the form? You're tracking everything. My employer is with a company that sends all this information to the government. So why don't you just put it together and there you go. In any event, there was this juxtaposition that I grappled with for a while. On the one hand, there were those who feel that if you earn a certain level, we're going to tax you more. And let's say you make 1 million and you're below 1 million, you're being taxed 15%. Now we're talking about your income tax. That has nothing to do with any of the other stuff. But if you go over 1 million, you're going up to 25%, which means you don't get to keep as much of the million. Okay. On the other hand, you had people at the turn of the 1800s into the 19th to the 20th century who had the phrase on their lips, this is the land of opportunity. And many of those people started small businesses out of storefronts and so forth, let's just say in New York, that grew over the decades into not only national, but in some instances here in the 21st century, global companies. Some of the other companies didn't last. Okay. Mm-hmm. But they came here with that thought, I'm going to make it because America is the land of opportunity. And it's still why people come here. So you had those two juxtapositions. And I finally let go of the first one having to do with the taxes, realizing that, you know what? If I get to keep $750,000 of the million, I still have 750,000. Okay. And if that's what they consider to be my fair share, okay, then that's what it'll be. And I'm good with that. Because it seems as though the mindset keeps a lot of us from
Mhm.
pursuing what we want. Talk to us about that before we wrap things up here.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. There's so many people that want, I feel like they work harder to not abide with the laws of the land instead of just, if you know there's a certain percentage of taxes, that's the reason why I shared before that with the system that help people to ensure they're profitable, that we
Mm-hmm.
set aside a certain amount for taxes. If you don't owe all of it at the end of the year, great. Then now you're that much more profitable. But I recommend people to set aside what you owe. I mean, you're going to set aside hopefully what you need to pay for your mortgage and your lights and your
Mm-hmm.
food.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to take care of the laws of the land. It just is what it is. And something that I do know, if all the years of being in business, even though you may not know what the tax laws are, that doesn't keep you from owing it.
Right, right.
Just because you don't know doesn't mean you don't owe.
Yeah, ignorance
And
of the law is no excuse, they say.
exactly. And so that's where I also encourage people to, if you don't know, like, then surround yourself with others that do.
Mm-hmm.
Get into networks and groups of other small business owners that can provide additional resources to you. But I don't recommend to try and evade the law and try and hide stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just think people work too hard trying to escape what's going to end up coming back around to you anyways. I just recommend, if we know I need $750,000 to live, or that's to be able to have the philanthropic endeavors I want to have, the
Mm-hmm.
life I want. Then $1 million could be the goal, and that's how we can make adjustments on the goal. And if our current level of service is not providing it, then what additional service can we provide, or what can I cut in order to still meet all the needs? And so that
Right.
is something that I recommend. If you don't know how to do it yourself, then find a professional that can help you do that. And that's where I come in.
Well, we encourage people to get in touch with you, and it's Danielle Brooks, and it's Pearl BC. That is pearlbc.com. We will be linked to that website as we continue our conversation with Danielle Brooks. I'm Richard Dugan, and Tell Me Your Story is the name of the program, New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Danielle Brooks has been my guest. Danielle, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program. This has been an education for me as well. And I understand that you do have on your website a little, I don't know if it's a survey per se or questionnaire that people can fill out and then possibly touch base with you to maybe, I don't know if there's an initial consultation and what have you, just to kind of see where they are and find out where they want to be or what they want and so forth that we've talked about, so that they can now set up plans to get there. And what's
Yes,
beautiful is you meet one goal, you get to set another one. And you meet that one, you get
absolutely.
to set it. So it's really cool. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yes, if they just go to our website, Pearl BC, and then go to the contact page, you'll be able to fill it out and be able to have a call with me. So I'd be happy to talk further and be able to help however I can.
I might even take you up on that. I think that it would behoove me to do that and to find ways to not only acquire new clients and so forth, but also to feel comfortable in the process. Because I know a lot of folks get caught up in, oh, I don't want to charge too much. Yeah, but you're worth that and
Yes,
more. Okay.
yes.
So those are some other areas we could certainly talk about. I have three final questions that I ask all of my guests, and I will ask those of you. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. New Paradigms for a New World. We are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com, with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music. We're on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope you'll subscribe and click notification. We also want to remind you that Choices 5 Steps for Life, my book, is available on Amazon, and it is available in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. And Audible is soon to be released. We also ask that you take some time during this decade of perfect vision to spend some time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place, as we did allude to the soul of a business, and listen to that still small voice. That'll guide you as well, maybe to the people that you need to have around you to have a very successful business and in turn a successful life. We also ask that if you would like to be a part of the work that we are doing, you'd like to support us financially, we do have a PayPal account that is there for your security as well as ours. With all of that being said, we want to first of all thank our guest once again and then ask those 3 questions. Number one being, who is Danielle Brooks?
Ooh. That's a good. Danielle Brooks wants to inspire people to live the life of their own dreams. And I know we're not here to introduce new things, but something I just want to encourage people that you can live the life that someone else may say that it's impossible. But I want to encourage people to live that life. So I am a homeschooling mom of 4 that also owns a virtual CFO firm. And someone else would say that's crazy, but it's possible because this is the life that I wanted.
Mm. What gets you up in the morning?
Besides my little kids, I will say the opportunity to help other people, to help other people find peace and calm within their busy lives. And just being able to allow my experiences to help other people do that that's what gets me going every single day, every call that I have, every encounter. I know that my life experiences are meant to help other people.
And finally, what was your best day?
Ever in life? I feel like I should have done some homework before these calls, for these questions. That feels like it's a hard question, but at the same time, the one that comes to mind is the birth of my 4th child. I had an all natural nomad's birth for my last 3 children, and it was a home birth, and it was exactly what I wanted, and it was just continued further proof that no matter what anybody says, you can literally do whatever you want to do. And that was just just confirmation that there is literally nothing that I can't do, and I can encourage other people to do the same.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. I love it. And I thank you again for joining us here on the program. And I do look forward to having you back because there is still a whole lot more we can talk about along these other ancillary lines. So I look forward to doing that.
Hey, I was happy to come back.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be in your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.